Welcome to episode 151 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. For today, we're going to be talking about some standouts from last night's matchup between Carolina and Colorado. This was a really good game from Carolina once again, high scoring affair from them. And Colorado, even though they are still a little inconsistent right now, they've strung together some wins and they've gotten slightly over 500, which is really good for them. And to really try and get back in the race and the swing of things here. And Carolina will start with some standouts there. They'll, like Andrei Svechnikov was the best player on the ice in this game. He had a 4 point game and a goal and 3 assists, and it was just all over the place. Two-way, in terms of two-way ability, was stand out there. And then at the same time, his playmaking was noticeable, getting off the wall in the O zone, his ability to cycle pucks and be able to be a threat as that F2, F3 guy off the cycle and in the zone offensively. I feel like there's a lot of traits in his game that were noticeable throughout. And he was very consistent throughout this game and offensively was generating very consistently as well. Sebastian Aho had a 2 point game. I felt like Aho really is one of the more underrated players in the league to this day, especially as a center, especially how he controls play at both ends of the ice as a two-way player and also in transition as an offensive player and just really thrives in every single situation. Really standout playmaker, finding cross seam plays, little small area plays as a passer and being able to time his passes right and time the weight on his passes. I feel like he's really underrated as a playmaker in this league. Marty Necas, 2 point game once again. He just continues to showcase that speed, the skill, the dual threat ability within his shot and his hands, and also his passing and the ability to just control play in all facets of the game. He really looks like an elite player now, and he's become really exciting to watch. And just a player who can utilize that speed to his advantage in transition, but also in the O zone. He can speed plays up, he can slow plays down. He has that ability to have a multifaceted approach to his skating. I feel like that allows him to control play a lot better than most players because, like I said, he can speed play up but also slow it down. So he has the ability to change the game, and also change the tempo and manipulate the pace and tempo of play. And just was really engaged all around, and I was really impressed with his ability. And then Sean Walker, I really liked his game against again his former team in Colorado for a brief amount of time. I really liked his weak side deactivation, his ability to activate on the rush as a defenseman, his ability to sprint to play, sprint inside and get interior inside the neutral zone. He has a lot of good habits ingrained in his game as an offensive minded D. And I feel like some of his offense really translates well to this hurricane style system where they encourage that weak side activation from their Ds, but also that activation on the rush from the puck carrier in terms of their defensemen as well. So they like to have that activity from their Ds. Sean Walker's a really key component to that and has been a really, really key addition for them thus far. I really like Jackson Blake's game yesterday, even though he had no points. I felt like his checking ability was noticeable. He's really improved as a decision maker from his time in the USHL playing with Chicago a couple of years prior to where he is now in the NHL. He's really fast tracked in terms of processing with the puck on his stick and the ability to play more of an East West game. I feel like has really helped his game translate to the upper level of pros thus far. And even though he's playing more of a bottom six role right now, I still noticed East West ability. I noticed the straight line speed. I noticed the ability to check with precision, but also check with anticipation and be able to be F1 in when necessary. He was F1 in a lot of the times on the forecheck yesterday for his line. He's playing with Kotkaniemi and I believe is Will Carrier on the other wing. And so that line was really good in terms of checking, noticeable there. And Jackson Blake, I feel like he's a really underrated player for them on the power play as well. He's a dual threat guy who can you can play him in the bumper if you wanted to because he's got that agility, that edge work to be able to play there. He's good on the flanks because he's got an underrated shot and underrated passing ability to have a little bit of deception within his game. But he's also really good at the net front. I feel like that's one of the bigger aspects to his game. He's undersized, but not afraid of anyone at the net. He's not afraid to get inside of guys. He's not afraid to get off the wall and get off the back wall specifically to try and get to the net. He just has that fearless vibe when he's trying to attack and trying to work his way to the net, which is really good to see out of a young player and a young forward for them. And Seth Jarvis, I really liked his game. I liked his off puck movement, his ability to pass and get receptions back. I feel like is really underrated in his game. He's really good at passing and then moving into space so he can get passes back almost immediately. So this allows him to be able to when he gets the pass back from teammates, he's able to be in space. He's available in space. So this not only makes it easier for his teammates, it makes it easier for himself because he can manage the play inside space. It's not like he's moving off the puck and then moving into positions where there's a guy on him or he's going to get pinned man to man or whatever. He's moving into situations where it's going to give him an advantage, and especially in ozone situations. I noticed it more in ozone more than anywhere else on the power play and even strength. It was noticeable a lot in the power play when Carolina had some power plays. Just ability to move off the puck and then sprint to the next sequence, sprint to the next space, and find that availability. So that was really noticeable. And then on Carolina's side, Kale McCarr, of course, just leading the rush. He was controlling tempo, controlling pace. He was activating as a weak side D, coming downhill in the ozone. So Colorado, they like to have a system engaged where sometimes their weak side D is not afraid to sprint towards the net, or the puck carrying D at the blue line is not afraid to sprint downhill towards the net. And they just have a rotation based system where the forwards will come in high and be able to rotate in and out with the defensemen. So it makes them really dangerous coming down the line and off the blue line. And Makar is one of the multifaceted approach players who he's really skilled with the puck on his stick, but he's also really skilled with his activation habits. And so when you see him activate, he activates based off timing, and he's not going to activate for the sake of activation. He's going to activate when the situation's right. He's going to make sure that he has enough space to operate in. Otherwise, he's going to be marked and he's going to be inside man-to-man coverage on Carolina. So he has to be very particular with how he chooses and when he chooses to activate. So he did a good job of that yesterday. Val Nichushkin had 2 of 3 goals for Colorado yesterday. Just noticed that power wing and the ability to play that multifaceted power winger game where he's a modern power forward. He can check and he can drive the wings, drive the pace, but at the same time, he's really skilled as a dual threat player and brings some small area handling skill. Has really continued to blossom in Colorado thus far. Just a guy who brings a little bit of everything in his approach, and he's really skilled all around as a player and very fun to watch when he's playing at his best as well. Arturi Lehkonen brought that speed element to this game. The thing that's noticeable with him is his ability to check and his ability to forecheck with pace. I feel like when talking about Lehkonen, I notice his skill, but I notice his checking ability more. His ability to separate guys from pucks, his ability to get engaged in contact, his ability to and willingness to pursue pucks as a winger, as F1, F2 support, and just the overall ability for him to be engaged so often on the forecheck is sometimes really difficult to do because a lot of times when you're especially when you're trying to forecheck, you're playing almost 200 feet of the ice as a winger, and because the center they don't have as much responsibility as being F1 in on the forecheck. Sometimes they might have to do that, but usually it's the winger's job to do that and be F1 in and be a hard in, especially if you're playing a system like Colorado's where they have a hard forecheck and they have very detailed support from their F2. So you have to be very precise in how you're checking as a wing when you're playing in Colorado. And Lekkonen's a guy who's very reliable, luckily, up and down the ice. So reliable on the track back and reliable on the forecheck. So you have 2 key elements there to his game that allow him to control defensive play and be able to manage the game a little bit better as well. And then Devontae's, there's not much that needs to be said about him. I just really like his modern day D at the blue line and how he's able to defend at the blue line and how he's able to defend in zone. I feel like a lot of his game is based on surfing and angles, and his angles when he's playing at his best are so well timed. He's able to cut ice in half, but cut it down gradually. So I notice this a lot with some of the better defensemen in the league nowadays, where if they're cutting plays off at the blue line, they like to cut it off on more of a slant than trying to cut it off on a straight line or trying to cut it off with solely their stick. They cut it off and they cut off the route on the slant. So this allows them to gradually pin the guy to the boards and close the play off and kill the play at the boards. So, say in a retrieval situation, when they cut the play off on a slant route, going back and maintaining their ability to skate forwards, when they go back and if they're able to get this if they're able to strip the puck, they can get inside positioning on the guy, strip the puck, and then pivot their way out the opposite direction with ease. And so this allows them, if they want to, they can reverse the puck back to a D to D situation if they're in zone defensively, or it just allows them easier puck control and to be able to kill the play in that instance is a lot easier for them. Versus if you're trying to defend in a straight line and then you're trying to kill the play on the boards, you still run the risk of that player getting the puck back and possibly getting inside. So you don't necessarily seal the contact fully. I feel like with Tays, I noticed his ability to defend on slants is really noticeable, and how he's able to kill the play and then get inside positioning is really underrated when it comes to him. And it's not necessarily super exciting to watch per se because when you talk about exciting players to watch, you talk about offense for the most part. But with Taves, I like watching his defensive details because I really feel like there's a lot you can learn from him in terms of the modern elements of defenseman. And just being able to defend on angles, using surfing techniques, like I said, defending on slants instead of defending in a straight line. I feel like also skating forwards is another big one to his game and how he defends. I rarely see him skate backwards when he's trying to kill plays. I feel like a lot of the times I'm watching him skate forwards, especially when you're playing with a guy like Cale Makar, who's also defending, skating forwards almost all the time. You There's a natural habit as his D partner to try and go for that. So I feel like with Tays, he's really noticeable as an all-around D, just one of the more underrated players and one of the most underrated defensemen defensively in the league at being able to shut plays down, being able to maintain that consistency over time as well.